The name's Rachel, and I'm the oldest of 2 daughters. From as far back as I can remember, I was the serious one, the independent one. My sister Lily? She was the complete opposite. Growing up, our house was always filled with noise. Lily's laughter, Mom and Dad's doting words, the constant buzz of the latest pop songs. Me? I preferred the quiet corners, nose buried in a book or scribbling away at my homework. Birthdays and holidays were a stark reminder of how different Lily and I were. While she'd tear through her gifts, squealing with delight at the latest trendy clothes or gadgets, I'd carefully set aside the money I received. "What are you saving for this time, Ratch?" Dad would ask, a hint of pride in his voice that never quite reached his eyes. "A laptop for studying," I'd reply. "The library computers are always full." He'd nod, but I could see the disconnect. They never quite understood why I didn't want the things other girls my age did. Lily, on the other hand, was a whirlwind of ever-changing styles and demands. "Mom, did you see the new iPhone? Everyone at school has one. I need it." And just like that, she'd have it. No questions asked, no saving required. I remember the day I finally bought my laptop. I'd saved for months, researching the best model for my needs. When I brought it home, I was bursting with pride. "Look, I finally got it," I announced at dinner. Mom glanced up from her plate. "That's nice, dear. Oh, Lily, tell us about your day at the mall." And just like that, the conversation shifted. Lily launched into a detailed description of her latest shopping spree, and my achievement faded into the background. It wasn't that they didn't love me. I knew they did, in their own way. But Lily was the sun in our family's solar system, and I was a distant planet, quietly orbiting on my own path. As we grew older, the differences only became more pronounced. While Lily experimented with wild hairstyles and the latest fashion trends, I stuck to my practical ponytail and comfortable jeans. The library became my second home, a quiet sanctuary where I could focus on my goals without distraction. When it came time for college, I threw myself into applications with the same determination I'd shown throughout high school. I spent countless nights perfecting my essays, researching scholarships, and studying for entrance exams. The day I received my acceptance letter, along with a full scholarship, was one of the proudest moments of my life. I burst into the kitchen, waving the letter. "Mom, Dad, I got in. Full ride." Mom looked up from where she was helping Lily with her makeup. "Oh, that's nice, dear." "Lily, hold still, I'm trying to get this eyeliner perfect." Dad glanced over his newspaper. "Good job, Rachel." We expected nothing less. Their lukewarm response stung, but I was used to it. I retreated to my room, clutching the letter to my chest. This was my ticket out, my chance to prove myself. Meanwhile, Lily barely scraped through high school. The day she brought home her mediocre report card, I expected our parents to finally show some disappointment. Instead, they rallied around her. "Oh, sweetie, don't worry about it," Mom cooed, stroking Lily's hair. "College isn't for everyone. You're talented in so many other ways." Dad nodded in agreement. "That's right, princess. You'll find your path." I couldn't believe my ears. "Are you kidding me?" She barely passed. Mom shot me a sharp look. "Rachel, don't be cruel. Your sister has other gifts." I bit my tongue and retreated once again. It was clear that no matter what I achieved, Lily would always be the favorite. College was a breath of fresh air. For the first time, I was surrounded by people who valued hard work and ambition. I threw myself into my studies, determined to make the most of this opportunity. One day, during my sophomore year, I got a call from home. It was Lily, her voice bubbly with excitement. "Ratch, guess what? I'm thinking of taking some beauty courses. Mom and Dad think it's a great idea." I wanted to tell her about the fascinating research project I was working on, about the internship I'd landed for the summer. But I knew she wouldn't care. As I hung up, I couldn't help but feel a mix of frustration and determination. I was on my own path, and I was going to make it count. The years flew by. While Lily flitted from one beauty course to another, never quite finishing anything, I graduated with honors. I landed a job at a prestigious company before the ink was dry on my diploma. The day I moved into my own apartment was bittersweet. As I unpacked my meager belongings, I thought about how different my life was from Lily's. She was still living at home, being pampered by our parents. But I was standing on my own 2 feet, ready to take on the world. My first few months at work were a whirlwind. I worked longer hours than anyone else, determined to prove myself. My dedication didn't go unnoticed. Within a year, I was promoted to team leader. I called home to share the news. Mom answered, "Oh, Rachel, that's nice. But guess what? Lily's met the most wonderful boy. He comes from such a good family. We're all so excited." As she rattled on about Lily's new boyfriend, my promotion faded into the background. I hung up feeling deflated but more determined than ever. If my family couldn't appreciate my achievements, I'd just have to achieve even more. I threw myself into my work like a woman possessed. Days blurred into nights, weekends became just another opportunity to get ahead. My dedication paid off. I got another promotion, then another. Before I knew it, I was head of the department, the youngest in the company's history. Mr. Thompson, the owner, called me into his office one day. "Rachel, your work has been exceptional. We've never had someone rise through the ranks so quickly." I beamed with pride. "Thank you, sir. I love what I do." He smiled. "It shows. That's why I want to offer you something special. We have a program for our top employees, a chance to buy an apartment at a significant discount. You've more than earned it." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of paperwork and planning. When I finally got the keys, I felt like I was walking on air. I decided to throw a housewarming party, a chance to celebrate my success with the people who mattered most. I didn't have much furniture yet, so I bought some inexpensive plastic tables and chairs. I arranged everything carefully, making sure the disposable tableware matched the decor. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine, and I was proud of it. The day of the party arrived. My colleagues showed up first, bearing gifts and warm congratulations. Then my family arrived. Mom, Dad, and Lily swept in like a whirlwind. I noticed Lily's eyes darting around, taking in the modest furnishings with a barely concealed smirk. As the evening wore on, I noticed a pattern. Every time one of my colleagues tried to congratulate me or mention my accomplishments, my parents would swiftly change the subject to Lily. "Oh, that reminds me," Mom would say, cutting off my coworker mid-sentence. "Did Rachel tell you about Lily's latest modeling gig? She's just so photogenic." Dad would chime in. "Yes, our Lily was born for the spotlight. Such natural talent." I saw the confused and slightly horrified looks on my colleagues' faces. I wanted to sink into the floor. Lily, for her part, basked in the attention. "Oh, Mom, stop it," she'd say with a giggle, clearly loving every moment. Finally, mercifully, my family left. As soon as the door closed behind them, my coworker Sarah turned to me, her eyes wide. "Rachel, what the hell was that?" she asked, her voice low and concerned. I shrugged, trying to play it off. "Oh, you know, that's just how they are." Another colleague, Mark, shook his head. "No, Rachel, that's not normal. Are you okay? Do you need help?" I felt a lump forming in my throat. Their concern was touching, but also embarrassing. "Guys, really, it's fine. I'm used to it. Who wants another drink?" As I busied myself in the kitchen, I could hear them whispering, their concern palpable. I blinked back tears, determined not to let them see how much my family's behavior had affected me. After the housewarming fiasco, I threw myself back into work with renewed vigor. Months flew by, and slowly but surely, I transformed my apartment into a space that truly felt like home. Every piece of furniture, every splash of color on the walls was a testament to my hard work and independence. One sunny Saturday, I decided to treat myself to something I'd been eyeing for a while, a car. Nothing flashy, just a reliable sedan that would get me from point A to point B. As I drove it home, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. This was mine, bought with my own money, a symbol of my success. I hadn't planned on telling my family, but news travels fast. The phone rang that evening, and Lily's voice chirped through the speaker. "Ratch, I heard you bought a car." "That's nice," she said, her tone suggesting it was anything but. "You know, you're really doing this the hard way. All this working and saving, it's so unnecessary." I felt my hackles rise. "What do you mean?" "Well, the main task of a woman is to get married properly, silly. Find a man who'll support you and give you everything you need. Why work yourself to the bone when you could have it all handed to you?" I was speechless for a moment. Was she serious? "Lily, that's not. I mean, I want to earn things for myself. I'm proud of what I've accomplished." She laughed, a tinkling sound that grated on my nerves. "Oh, Ratch, always the difficult one. Well, you'll see. I'll show you how it's done." Before I could respond, she had hung up. I stared at the phone, a mix of anger and disbelief swirling in my gut. How could we see the world so differently? A few months later, I got my answer. Lily called, her voice bubbling with excitement. "Rachel, you'll never guess what happened. I'm getting married. His name is Robert. He's absolutely loaded, Ratch. His parents are paying for the whole wedding. It's going to be gorgeous." As she rattled off details about dresses and flowers and guest lists, I felt a strange hollowness in my chest. This was what she had been working towards, I realized. This was her version of success. The day of the wedding arrived all too soon. I stood in the grand hall, feeling out of place among the glittering guests. Lily was radiant in her designer gown, and our parents couldn't stop gushing. I sipped my champagne, trying to quell the bitterness rising in my throat. Had they ever looked at me with such pride? Had they ever been this happy for my accomplishments? As the evening wore on, I felt more and more like an outsider. Lily was in her element, charming guests and basking in the attention. Our parents flitted about, proudly introducing themselves as the parents of the bride. As I drove home in my modest car, to my modest apartment that I'd worked so hard for, I couldn't help but wonder, had I made the right choices? Was Lily right? Had I chosen the harder path? But then I thought about my job, my achievements, the sense of pride I felt every time I accomplished something on my own. No, I decided. My path might be harder, but it was mine. And that made all the difference. After Lily's wedding, life settled into a new rhythm. Work kept me busy, but my mother's frequent calls became an unwelcome interruption. Every conversation was the same. "Rachel, darling," Mom would start, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "You'll never believe what Lily's been up to." I'd brace myself as she launched into another tale of Lily's fabulous new life. "She's been invited to the most exclusive gatherings. Can you believe it? Our Lily, rubbing elbows with high society." One day, after a particularly trying call, I couldn't hold back anymore. "Mom, that's great for Lily, but don't you want to know what's going on in my life?" There was a pause. "Oh, honey," she said, her tone patronizing. "Of course we care. But you really should learn from your sister. Be more beautiful, get things easily. Why work all day for pennies when you could have it all?" A few weeks later, an invitation arrived. Lily and Robert were having a housewarming party for their new luxury apartment, a gift from his parents, of course. The night of the party, I stood outside their building, feeling small. I smoothed down my simple dress and took a deep breath before heading in. The apartment was stunning. Every surface gleamed, every piece of furniture looked like it cost more than my yearly salary. My parents were already there, cooing over every detail. I tried to blend into the background, but Lily spotted me. She sauntered over, champagne flute in hand. "Rachel, so glad you could make it," she said, her eyes scanning my outfit critically. "I hope you're taking notes. This is how a housewarming should be done." None of that plastic furniture and disposable dish nonsense like at your place. I felt my cheeks burn. Lily, that's... But she was already moving on, leaving me with the sting of her words. The weeks that followed were a parade of Lily's extravagance. She seemed to buy everything in sight, always the most expensive option. Then came the car. I was leaving work one evening when a sleek sports car pulled up beside me. The window rolled down, revealing Lily's smug face. "Like it?" she preened. "Just a little gift from Robert. Thought I'd take it for a spin." I glanced at my reliable but unremarkable sedan. "It's very nice, Lily." She followed my gaze and laughed. "Oh, Rachel. Always settling for less. You'll always be working for others, while I live the good life. Ta-da." 2 years flew by in a blur of spreadsheets, meetings, and promotions. While I climbed the corporate ladder, Lily seemed content to climb from one shopping spree to the next. Our paths couldn't have been more different, but I'd made my peace with it. Or so I thought. It was a regular Tuesday when my world tilted on its axis. Mom called, her voice uncharacteristically shaky. "Rachel, it's Lily. She's back home. Robert left her. He said she was too shallow, too focused on spending his money. Called her stupid, can you believe it? He had her sign a prenup, so she's got nothing." I felt a mix of emotions, shock, concern, and if I'm being honest, a tiny flicker of vindication. I squashed it down immediately, ashamed of myself. "I'm coming over," I said, already grabbing my keys. When I arrived at my parents' house, it was like walking into a war zone. I could hear Lily's screams from the driveway. Inside, it was worse. Lily was in the living room, mascara streaking down her face, her designer clothes torn. She was throwing anything she could get her hands on, vases, picture frames, cushions. "He can't do this to me," she shrieked. "I'm Lily. I'm beautiful. I'm perfect." Mom and Dad fluttered around her, trying to calm her down. "Sweetie, please," Mom pleaded. "We'll figure this out. Daddy will buy you a new dress, won't you, dear?" Dad nodded frantically. "Of course, princess, anything you want." I stood there, watching this scene unfold, feeling like I was in some bizarre alternate reality. This couldn't be happening. This wasn't how life was supposed to work, was it? As the days passed, Lily's tantrums didn't subside. She'd cry for hours, then scream, then demand expensive gifts to make herself feel better. Our parents, ever eager to please their favorite, complied with every request. One evening, after a particularly bad episode, I couldn't hold my tongue anymore. "Maybe," I said cautiously, "Lily should consider getting a job? It might help her appreciate the value of money and give her something to focus on besides all this." The room went dead silent. Then all hell broke loose. Lily's face contorted in rage. "A job like you? Slaving away day after day like some peasant?" She burst into tears and ran upstairs, slamming her door so hard the house shook. Before I could process what had happened, Mom and Dad rounded on me. "How dare you?" Mom hissed. "Your sister is going through a terrible time, and you suggest she lower herself to your level?" "But I didn't mean," I tried to explain, but they weren't listening. "Get out," Dad said, his voice cold. "Get out of this house right now." Mom pointed to the door. "Out. And don't come back until you can be supportive of your sister." In a daze, I grabbed my purse and left. As I walked into my apartment, my sanctuary, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Sadness at being rejected by my family, anger at their blindness to Lily's faults, and oddly, a sense of relief. For the first time, I saw clearly how toxic my family dynamic had been all these years. Life has a funny way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. Just days after the blowout with my family, I received news that left me speechless. I'd won a company contest. The prize? A 4-month around-the-world cruise. In a moment of weakness, or perhaps hope, I called my parents. Maybe this good news would bridge the gap between us. "Mom, Dad, you won't believe it," I want to cruise around the world." The silence on the other end was deafening. Then, my mother's cold voice cut through. "Rachel, how can you be so selfish? Your sister is going through a terrible time, and you're bragging about vacations?" I felt like I'd been slapped. "I'm not bragging, I just thought." Mom interrupted. "If you had any decency, you'd give that ticket to Lily. She needs a change of scenery. You can stay home and work, like you always do." Something snapped inside me. Years of pent-up frustration came pouring out. "No," I said firmly. "I won this trip. I earned it. I'm not giving it up because Lily made poor life choices. I'm going." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of preparation. I packed my bags, put my affairs in order, and on the day of departure, I turned off my phone. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. The cruise was everything I'd dreamed of and more. I watched sunsets in the Mediterranean, explored ancient ruins in Greece, marveled at the bustling streets of Hong Kong. For 4 glorious months, I was just Rachel, not the responsible older sister, not the family disappointment. Just me. But all good things must come to an end. As the ship docked back home, reality came crashing back. I turned on my phone, bracing myself for the barrage of messages. Surprisingly, there were only a few missed calls from my parents. Feeling lighter than I had in years, I headed home. But as I approached my apartment door, I heard noises inside. My heart raced. Had someone broken in? I cautiously opened the door, only to find myself face to face with Lily. She was sprawled on my couch, surrounded by shopping bags and empty takeout containers. "Lily?" I gasped. "What are you doing here?" She looked up, barely fazed by my sudden appearance. "Oh, you're back. Finally." I stood there, key still in hand, trying to process the scene before me. "How did you get in here?" Lily rolled her eyes. "Don't be dense, Rachel. I used the spare keys you gave Mom and Dad. I needed a change of scenery. Everything at home reminded me of, you know." I stood there, staring at Lily, trying to process everything. This was too much. I needed air. "I'm going to the store," I muttered, grabbing my car keys and heading for the door. But when I reached the parking lot, my car was nowhere to be seen. Panic rising, I called my parents. Mom answered, her voice sickly sweet. "Rachel, dear, how was your trip?" "Where's my car?" I demanded, cutting to the chase. There was a pause. Then Dad's voice came on the line. "We sold it." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "You, what?" Lily needed cheering up, Mom explained, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. "We used the money to take her shopping, to the spa." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "That was my car. You had no right." "Now, Rachel," Dad's stern voice cut in. "We're family. What's yours is ours. Don't be so selfish." Something inside me snapped. Years of pent-up frustration, resentment, and anger came pouring out. "Selfish? You steal my car, invade my home, and I'm selfish? I want my money back, now." Their response was immediate and harsh. They called me heartless, ungrateful, a disappointment. The words stung, but for the first time, they didn't break me. I hung up and marched back to my apartment. Lily was still there, oblivious to the storm raging inside me. "Get out," I said, my voice quiet but firm. Lily looked up, shocked. "What?" "Get out now." She tried to argue, to manipulate me like she always had, but I stood firm. For once in my life, I put myself first. The next day, I hired a lawyer and sued my parents for the value of the car. They were furious, threatening to disown me, to cut me out of their will. But I stood my ground. The case went to court. It was a grueling process, laying out years of emotional manipulation and financial abuse for strangers to judge. But in the end, justice prevailed. The judge ruled in my favor. My parents were forced to sell their house to repay me. They moved into a small apartment, all the while painting me as the villain who had ruined their lives. but for once, their words couldn't touch me. As I drove my new car home from the dealership, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time in my life, I was truly free. Free from expectations, free from manipulation, free to be myself. I cut off all contact with my family. It wasn't an easy decision, but it was necessary. The first few months were hard. There were moments of doubt, of loneliness. But slowly, I began to build a life on my own terms. I threw myself into my work, rising quickly through the ranks. I made new friends who appreciated me for who I was, not what I could do for them. I traveled, I learned new skills, I found hobbies that brought me joy. And most importantly, I learned to love myself. To appreciate my strength, my determination, my worth. Now, as I sit in my office, looking out over the city, I can't help but smile. The path I chose wasn't easy, but it was mine. I built this life brick by brick, decision by decision. And I wouldn't have it any other way.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer, a 32-year-old marketing executive with a passion for fitness and wellness. I even run a blog called Strength Within, where I share tips and personal experiences to inspire others. 2 years ago, I married Thomas, thinking I found my soulmate. He supported my healthy lifestyle completely. We'd go on morning runs, meal prep on Sundays, and even brainstorm content for my blog. It felt perfect, until we moved closer to his mother, Lisa. Lisa lived in a gated community, claiming her health required proximity to family. At first, I was hopeful about the move, but her influence quickly turned my perfect marriage into a nightmare. "Jennifer, darling," she'd coo at family dinners, "you simply must try my pot roast. Though perhaps a smaller portion for you." She'd say this while setting down a food scale to measure my plate. Everyone else was served normally. "Mom, stop. This is embarrassing," Thomas would protest weakly, but he'd cave as soon as Lisa replied, "I'm just trying to help, dear." She always managed to slip in comments like Susan, Thomas's first wife, understood the importance of portion control. Such a lovely figure she kept. Her best friend Karen would nod knowingly. "Oh yes, Susan was always so conscious of her appearance," she'd add, dismissing my accomplishments as a former state swimming champion. It wasn't just the dinners. Lisa's scrutiny seeped into every corner of my life. One evening, I overheard her on the phone. "I'm really concerned about Jennifer's relationship with food. Thomas never had these issues with Susan." When I confronted Thomas, he shrugged, saying, "She only wants what's best for the family." The turning point came when Lisa started showing up uninvited. One day, as I prepared for a major client presentation, she breezed into my office. "Working such long hours, no wonder Thomas eats alone so often. You know how he loves a home-cooked meal, just like Susan used to make." Her jabs grew bolder. "Is that outfit really appropriate for someone in your position?" she said, eyeing my professional attire. "The hemline is rather ambitious." It wasn't just verbal barbs. I started noticing strange things happening at work, emails disappearing, meetings mysteriously rescheduled. My assistant eventually let it slip. "Some woman keeps calling HR, claiming to be your mother-in-law. She's concerned about your mental health." The final straw came at home. My gym equipment was tampered with, the weights dangerously loose. I could have been seriously injured. Lisa's reaction: "Oh dear, why not speak to my friend, Dr. Roberts? Just a friendly chat. Thomas agrees it would be best." When I met Dr. Roberts, the trap became clear. "Your mother-in-law tells me you've been struggling with body image and aggressive tendencies," he said. That's when I knew I had to take action. I started documenting everything. Voice recordings of Lisa's helpful comments, photos of tampered equipment, screenshots of my canceled appointments. Then Ashley, the daughter of one of Lisa's friends, approached me at the gym. "Mom told me not to say anything," she whispered, "but I overheard Lisa on the phone with your HR department. She said you might need medical leave, for your own good." Lisa had weaponized her social circle, country club gossips, charity committee members, even the neighborhood watch, to spread the narrative of the unstable daughter-in-law. "I just don't know what to do about Jennifer," I overheard her telling the garden club. "She's becoming paranoid, imagining I'm sabotaging her. Susan went through a similar phase before her unfortunate departure. My phone buzzed with a text from Thomas. Mom thinks we should have dinner with Dr. Roberts tomorrow. She's worried about you. I stared at my reflection in the office window, recalling the strong, confident woman I used to be, a competitive swimmer who never backed down from a challenge. Lisa wanted to break me just like she broke Susan. But she had no idea who she was dealing with. I opened my laptop and started a new document, evidence of harassment and manipulation. Game on, Lisa, game on. I needed answers. Susan was the key. We met at a coffee shop 2 towns over, safely away from Lisa's network of spies. Her hands trembled as she stirred her coffee. It's not just about control, she whispered, glancing around nervously. It's about money and power. Lisa keeps her sons trapped through their businesses. She secretly owns majority shares. If they disobey, she threatens to pull funding. That's why Thomas has been so distant. She did the same to my Thomas. Then came the bombshell. Susan leaned in, her voice dropping further. There are cameras everywhere. The bedroom, kitchen, even the bathroom. When I confronted Thomas, he called me paranoid. That's when I knew I had to leave. My skin crawled. I thought about the odd devices I'd noticed at home, in air vents behind picture frames. Lisa's reach extended further than I imagined. Later that night, Sandra called me in a hushed tone. I found something in David's office, documents from Lisa's foundation. She's been laundering money through fake charity events. There's proof of tax evasion, too. The pieces started falling into place. Lisa wasn't just a controlling mother-in-law. She was running an empire of manipulation. David, Sandra's husband, finally opened up during a secret meeting. She had our father's will change on his deathbed, he revealed bitterly. Convinced him we couldn't handle the inheritance. The guilt killed him. Then I learned the truth about Dr. Roberts. I overheard him on the phone while picking up takeout. Yes, cousin Lisa, don't worry. I'll adjust my report accordingly. Jennifer seems unstable. That was the final straw. I began reaching out to others Lisa had hurt. Former daughters-in-law, ex-business partners, and old friends. Each had a story of betrayal and control. Then came Karen's breakdown. She showed up at my office, mascara running. I can't do this anymore, she sobbed. Lisa never had health issues. She faked cancer 3 times to keep her sons close. She's a monster, and I have proof. Medical records she forged. The full scope of her schemes became clear. Sabotage contracts, blackmail through her charity's donor list, and even fake auctions to launder money. Every tactic was designed to isolate, destabilize, and dominate. I compiled everything: financial records, recordings, photos, and statements. Lisa thought she was weaving a web to trap me. Instead, she handed me the threads to unravel her empire. At our last dinner, she sneered, "You're just like Susan, unstable, paranoid, delusional." "No, Lisa," I replied, meeting her gaze. "I'm nothing like Susan. I don't run. I fight back." The annual charity gala was Lisa's crowning achievement, a glittering event where the who's who gathered to fawn over her supposed generosity. It was also the perfect stage for her downfall. Such a lovely evening. Lisa beamed from the podium. "Thanks to your generous donations, our foundation continues to help those in need." The federal agents walked in right on cue. "What's the meaning of this?" Lisa demanded, her voice cracking as they approached. Sandra stood up, her voice ringing through the room. "The meaning? Check your phones, everyone. You'll find proof of how Lisa has been stealing from her own charity for years, funneling donations into her mansion renovations and designer wardrobe." Gasps rippled through the ballroom as hundreds of phones pinged with notifications. Lisa's carefully curated facade shattered in real time. "She's lying," Lisa shrieked. "Thomas, David, tell them." But David stepped forward, his voice firm. "It's over, Mom. I've already transferred control of the family businesses. You're out." Thomas stood frozen, pale and shaking as the truth sunk in. The cameras, the contracts, everything she said. It's all true. "Thomas," I said calmly, locking eyes with him, "you'll be served with divorce papers tomorrow. I'd wish you good luck, but honestly, I don't care anymore." Karen stepped forward, holding a folder of documents. "I have copies of every forged medical record, Lisa. Your fake cancer claims? The hospital foundation's board will be very interested in these." Dr. Roberts tried slipping out unnoticed, but representatives from the medical board intercepted him at the exit. "Your license is suspended," one of them said. pending an investigation into ethics violations and false reporting. Lisa, the once imposing matriarch, crumbled before everyone's eyes. Her designer dress suddenly looked cheap, her perfectly applied makeup garish under the harsh light of exposure. 6 months later, I stood in the middle of my newly opened wellness center, dedicated to helping survivors of family abuse rebuild their lives. In the background, the news played. Socialite Lisa faces federal charges for tax evasion and charity fraud. Her estate has been seized and sources report she's now living in a modest apartment outside town. I smiled faintly and turned back to the group at our first retreat. My life had grown so much bigger than the wreckage Lisa left behind. David and Sandra occasionally check in. They're doing well, running the family business ethically. Susan joined my foundation, using her story to help others navigate and recover from manipulation and control. And Thomas? Last I heard, he's in therapy, real therapy this time, not his mother's cousin posing as a doctor. Good for him. Too little, too late. A few days ago, a letter arrived, Lisa's handwriting scrawled on the envelope. It was some long-winded apology, a product of her generation, wanting the best for her family, being truly sorry. I didn't bother reading it. I marked it returned to sender and went back to planning the center's expansion. Yesterday, I ran into Karen at the supermarket. Lisa tried joining the senior center's bridge club, she said, smirking. Nobody would play with her. She just sat there alone until she left. I shrugged and pushed my cart forward. My life's too full to care about revenge now. Today, a package arrived. Security footage from the hidden cameras Lisa installed in my old home. I added it to the thick file labeled close, locked it away in a cabinet, and walked out of the office. Some people keep photo albums from their marriages. I collected evidence. But that chapter of my life is over. If you were in my shoes when Thomas repeatedly chose his mother's side, would you have given him a second chance, knowing he was also a victim of Lisa's manipulation? Or was I right to walk away completely? The hardest part of leaving a toxic relationship isn't just walking out, it's staying gone. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Hi everyone, I'm Patricia. At 32, I built a thriving practice helping people transform their lives through nutrition, but nothing compared to the joy I felt on my wedding day 5 years ago. It was during the reception when James's grandmother, Barbara, pulled me aside. "Come here, sweetheart," she said, her eyes twinkling as she slipped off her vintage diamond ring. "This ring has been worn by the strongest women in our family for 3 generations. Now, it's your turn." I remember tearing up as she placed it on my finger. The antique setting sparkled with tiny diamonds surrounding a brilliant center stone. Martha, my mother-in-law, hugged me tightly and whispered, "Welcome to the family." Truly, everything felt perfect until James's younger sister, Susan, moved back home after her divorce 6 months ago. At the first Sunday dinner after Susan's return, I caught her staring at my ring. "That ring is absolutely gorgeous," she gushed, grabbing my hand across the dinner table. "Grandmother had such amazing taste." "Indeed she did," Martha smiled. "And Patricia takes such good care of it." But something felt off. Every Sunday dinner became an endless stream of Susan's comments about the ring. "Remember when grandmother used to let me try it on?" she'd muse. Or, "Grandmother always said I had the same delicate fingers as hers." Then came the stories. "Oh, Patricia, did I ever tell you about how grandmother promised me her jewelry collection before she passed?" she would say, her voice dripping with sweetness. She had such a special bond with her only granddaughter. Last Sunday, I was helping Martha in the kitchen when I glimpsed Susan through the doorway. She was holding my hand up to the light, supposedly admiring the ring again. But I noticed her phone in her other hand, snapping photos. Later, Martha commented with concern. "She's been asking a lot about the ring lately, claims she's just feeling nostalgic after the divorce." "I've noticed," I replied, twisting the ring nervously on my finger. "Something doesn't feel right." James dismissed my worries. "Babe, she's just going through a rough time. You know how sentimental she gets about family stuff." But I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling, the way Susan's eyes followed my every movement, the way she managed to bring up the ring in every conversation, the secret photos. It all felt calculated, like she was planning something. I just never imagined how far she'd go to get what she wanted. It all came to a head during what was supposed to be a typical Thursday evening family dinner at my in-laws. Susan cleared her throat, tapping her wine glass with a spoon. My stomach dropped at the sight of that familiar, manipulative smile. "Everyone, I have something important to share," she announced, pulling out her iPad. "I found this video while going through old memories." The grainy footage showed grandmother Barbara in her hospital bed. My heart raced as I recognized her final days. The video had clearly been edited. The jump cuts were obvious, but Susan's masterful manipulation had everyone entranced. "My dearest Susan," Barbara's weak voice crackled through the speakers, "I want you to have." Jump cut, "My ring." Jump cut, "It belongs to you." Martha gasped, her fork clattering against her plate. "Oh my, I had no idea Mother made such a promise." "That video is edited," I protested, my hands shaking. "This isn't what happened." "Are you calling my sister a liar?" James snapped, making me flinch. I had never heard that tone from him before. "James, honey, please." Susan dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. "I didn't want to do this publicly, but I've been having such a hard time since my divorce. Seeing that ring on someone else's hand when grandmother explicitly wanted me to have it. It's just too painful." Martha reached across the table, patting Susan's hand. "Patricia, dear, perhaps you should do the right thing. Family harmony is so important." "It's just temporary," James added softly, not meeting my eyes. "Until we figure this out." Before I could respond, the doorbell rang, making everyone jump. Martha's friend Rebecca had arrived early for their book club meeting. She stood frozen in the doorway, sensing the tension. Susan's voice turned sharp. "Give me the ring," she demanded, her mask slipping. "I'm the real granddaughter here. You're just some outsider who married in." My fingers went numb as 6 pairs of eyes bored into me. Even James, my supposed partner, sat silent as his sister attacked me. With trembling hands, I tried to remove the ring, but it stuck, almost like a final protest. "Here, let me help." Susan grabbed my hand roughly, yanking the ring free. I watched in horror as she immediately slipped it onto her own finger, admiring how it caught the light. "Perfect fit," she smirked. "Just like grandmother always said." Rebecca cleared her throat from the doorway. "Susan, isn't that the same trick you pulled with Caroline's earrings in college?" Susan's head snapped up, her eyes flashing with warning. "I don't know what you're talking about, Rebecca. This is a family matter." But the damage was done. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. Without a word, I grabbed my purse and walked out, ignoring James calling after me. As I reached my car, Rebecca hurried after me. "Wait," she called. "There's something you need to know, Susan, something that happened years ago." The next morning, Rebecca and I met at a quiet coffee shop downtown. She wrapped her hands tightly around her coffee mug, leaning forward. "Susan's been doing this for years. In college, she stole her friend Caroline's family heirloom earrings, claiming her grandmother had promised them to her. She sold them to cover gambling debts." My mind raced. Could Susan have done the same with my ring? I needed proof. Later that day, I visited Mercy Hospital, where grandmother Barbara had spent her final days. Nurse Janet, who had cared for her, was still there. "Susan?" "No, she never visited," Janet said, shaking her head as she checked the visitor logs. "The only visitors were Martha, James, and you. You came every day after your nutrition clinic closed." Janet paused, then pulled out her phone. "Actually, Mrs. Barbara asked me to record something for her. I still have it, but with everything that happened, I forgot to share it." The video showed grandmother, weak but clear-minded, speaking directly to the camera. "Martha, make sure Patricia keeps the ring. Susan's been calling, demanding all my jewelry. But that ring belongs to Patricia. She has the pure heart this family needs." My hands trembled as I forwarded the video to Martha. Within minutes, my phone exploded with messages. Martha had discovered that Susan's deception went deeper. The family security cameras had captured Susan rifling through my purse during Sunday dinners, photographing my credit cards. "Meet me at the bank," James texted urgently. "You need to see this." At the bank, James looked devastated. "Susan's been forging checks from our joint account. She has massive gambling debts, liens against her house." His voice cracked. "She pawned Mom's pearl necklace months ago." While James dealt with the bank, I drove past Susan's house. Through the window, I saw her gesturing angrily on the phone. The ring on her finger sparkled, but something seemed off in the way it caught the light. Then Rebecca called. "I just left the jewelry store where Susan's been hanging out. The owner confirmed she sold him a diamond ring matching your description 3 days ago. What she's wearing now is a cheap replica. I found records of her selling jewelry across 3 states, each time claiming they were promised to her. The pieces fell into place. The compliments, the photos, the fake video, all part of her calculated plan. But Susan had made one crucial mistake. She kept the fake ring. Martha called, her voice shaking. I've invited everyone for dinner tomorrow night. Susan thinks we're celebrating her getting the ring, but Janet's bringing the real video. The jeweler's coming to examine the fake ring, and Rebecca has gathered statements from Susan's other victims. I touched my bare finger where the ring used to sit. What about James? Will he stand with us? He's already called the police about the forged checks, Martha replied grimly. Susan went too far this time. I never imagined this was my daughter. Tomorrow night, everything changes. Looking at the mountain of evidence, the visitor logs, security footage, bank statements, and victim testimonies, I felt a strange calm. Susan thought she won, but her house of cards was about to collapse spectacularly. The next evening, Susan swept into the dining room in a designer dress, clearly bought with her ill-gotten gains. The fake ring sparkled unnaturally on her finger as she played the gracious hostess. I'm so glad we can all move past this unpleasantness, she said with a triumphant smile, barely disguising her victory dance. Just as we sat down for dinner, Martha's friend David, who, unbeknownst to Susan, was a certified gemologist, arrived. Susan, too busy flaunting her heirloom, barely noticed him. Susan, dear, Martha spoke up during dessert. Would you let David take a closer look at the ring? He's always had such an interest in family heirlooms. Susan's smile faltered just for a second. Oh, I wouldn't want to take it off. It's so special to me. Please, Martha insisted, her voice carrying a steely edge I had never heard before. David examined the ring under his portable loupe, his expression darkening. This is cubic zirconia in a brass setting, worth maybe $50. The color drained from Susan's face. That's impossible, she stammered. Right on cue, Rebecca entered the room, a folder clutched in her hands. Is it? She said, her voice cutting through the silence. Because I have the receipt from Crown Jeweler showing you sold the real ring 3 days before that family dinner. You went through my things. Susan shrieked, backing away from the table. Like you went through my purse, I countered, my voice steady. The security cameras caught everything, Susan. James connected his laptop to the TV, playing grandmother Barbara's real video message. The room fell silent as Barbara's weak but unmistakable voice filled the air, explicitly naming me as the rightful owner of the ring. Susan's elaborate house of lies crumbled before our eyes. It was just a loan, she sobbed, mascara streaming down her cheeks. I needed to cover some debts. I was going to buy it back. Like you were going to buy back Mom's pearls? James's voice cracked. Or replace Caroline's earrings. We found everything, Susan. Every pawn shop, every victim, every lie. You don't understand. Susan screamed, her desperation palpable. I deserve that ring. I'm blood family. Blood family doesn't steal, Martha said quietly. Blood family doesn't lie or hurt their own for money. Panicking, Susan lunged for her purse. But David blocked her path. The police have been notified about the forged checks, he said calmly. I suggest you stay. I stood up, my heart pounding but my voice clear. I'm not pressing charges over the ring. The room fell into stunned silence. Not because you deserve mercy, I continued meeting Susan's bewildered gaze, but because I'm choosing to be better than you. The ring's gone, and honestly, I'm glad. It showed me exactly who you are. The next day, James retrieved the original ring from the pawn shop. But I handed it over to Martha for safekeeping. Some things, once broken, can't be fixed, like trust. 6 months later, Susan's gambling debts made local headlines. She had fled town, leaving behind a trail of debt and shattered relationships. I rarely saw the family anymore, except for Martha, who had become more of a mother to me than I ever imagined. On my birthday, Martha surprised me with a new ring, a simple band with a small diamond. This represents who you truly are, she said, her eyes warm. Strong, genuine, and impossible to fake. I wear it proudly, a reminder that family isn't about blood or inheritance. It's about truth, trust, and choosing to rise above those who try to drag you down. Have you ever forgiven someone who deliberately humiliated you in front of your family? Would you have pressed charges against Susan, or do you agree with my decision to take the high road? Sometimes the best revenge is showing others that their toxicity can't break you. Share your thoughts in the comments below.